Hello again, friends, and welcome to another episode of Culture Crossroads. I'm Andrew Southwick, and as always, thank you for being with us on this episode. You know, I don't know about you, but I get tired of Western modern media culture always trying to frame obvious villains as victims. You know, the bad guys all of a sudden are the good guys. The proliferation of victimhood across all the peoples and groups, particularly that the progressive left hopes will vote for them for forever, is rampant. And the result is a society that is drifting more and more toward lawlessness. Whether it's the city of Chicago asking its gang members to wait until after 9 o'clock to do their drive-by shootings, yes, that is a thing that happened, or it's the millions of illegal immigrants pouring across our borders, and among them, some of the most vile criminals the world can produce being embedded into our cities and towns. Or if it's groups like FEMA offering $750 to hurricane victims in North Carolina, and yes, in this case, these are actual victims. Well, at the same time, just last week, President Biden sent to Iran tens of billions of more dollars. It's clear that we live in a bizarro world where up is down, right is wrong, evil is good, gender doesn't exist, money just comes from printing machines out of nowhere, and of course, our freedom kills the planet. And it's in this context where I came upon a clip that I'm going to show you from CNN. Now, in the clip, I want to set this up. In the clip, Republican strategist Scott Jennings called out CNN Newsnight guest host Audie Cornish when the latter attempted to portray Jordan Neely as a victim and implied that seeing Neely as a victim was, quote, a Christian thing. Now, for those who may not know, Jordan Neely is a homeless man with a criminal record who, on May 1st of 2023, displayed threatening and menacing behavior on a New York subway. In response, Marine Daniel Penny restrained Neely, and after which Neely died. Now, according to the Daily Caller, a Manhattan jury found Penny not guilty on charges of criminally negligent homicide in the death of Neely after a judge dismissed manslaughter charges on what was the Friday of that week against the Marine veteran. And however, the Marine veteran is he still faces a civil lawsuit, which was filed by Neely's father. Now, I want to go ahead and let's take a look at this CNN clip.
What do you say to the parents of a victim who dies in this circumstance? You just say, hey, sorry, not
and brag is not the first move.
Like,
You be the last.
this is not me saying it's good or bad, but prosecutors do go after people all the time for a variety of things.
You keep referring to Neely as the victim. I think Penny is the victim in this case, and I think the people on that. I think people on the train are the victim.
I have a tendency to call the people who die a victim. We have different ideas about that, but to my mind, someone lost a child, and I'm always going to feel for that person. That's just how I'm built. It's like a Christian thing. But the reason why I'm asking is...
Are you saying I'm not a Christian?
I'm not at all. I just want to make sure that you understand it's a values-based comment.
Are you saying I don't have any values?
Not a political one.
Are you saying I don't have any values?
No, Scott, she's not saying that.
He is, but he needs a clip for the internet, so I need to...
Exactly.
Now, yes, I note the disdain that is just dripping from Miss Cornish's demeanor towards Scott Jennings. I mean, the condescension was on full display. But it was the idea of the Christian thing that caught my attention. Isn't it interesting how Christianity is typically portrayed as an oppressive tool of the archaic patriarchy when we properly apply it? But when we use it to serve our own interests and worldviews, particularly those of the political left, well, then it's okay. So what's the premise here from Miss Cornish? What is she trying to say? Well, it's that we feel bad for everyone who dies, and if they die, they're automatically a victim. But is that true? Do we feel bad that evil people throughout history have died? Do we honestly feel bad when people who are clearly menaces to humanity meet their end? No. Now, look, I do feel bad that death is in the world at all, but God tells us in his word, the Bible, that the reason death is in the world is because we, as humanity, in Adam and Eve, we chose sin over God. And the wages of that sin, the consequences then, is death. And for that, I am profoundly sad. But what happened on that subway, as far as I have been able to discern, as far as I've been able to tell, was that Neely was behaving in such a threatening manner that someone needed to stop him or else others would be hurt or worse. But increasingly, right here in America, we're being told that we're not allowed to defend ourselves against evil. We're not allowed to defend ourselves against threats. We are constantly being asked to give up our weapons of self-defense, our guns, for example. States are implementing equal force laws which limit what you can do to defend yourself should someone assault you or your family or God forbid, break into your home. And on this subway, on that day in May of 2023, Mr. Neely was a danger and a threat, and Mr. Penny subdued that threat. In any other era, we would all see that clearly, but not now. And it never fails that the same people who are lamenting the death of Mr. Neely for political purposes are not sharing the same sadness about the United Healthcare CEO who was assassinated in broad daylight. Do you wonder why? Do you wonder why President Biden didn't come out in the immediate aftermath of that assassination and try to pass more gun control after the murder? The left always does that. Every gun crime that happens, they're trying to pass gun control. Why not this time? Or do you wonder why many of the reports about the shooter used words like he was provoked and so on? And were these the same people? They only want to do the Christian thing. They want to mourn tragic losses of life. But were these same people crying the same tears when millions of people around the world were killed during an outbreak of a virus that we now know, and we even knew then, was completely treatable and for the most part survivable? But because Big Pharma wanted to sell a product, because Big Pharma pays the bills at the corporate news networks, we were told that ivermectin was horse-paste and hydroxychloroquine was a Trumpian farce. And for the first time in modern recorded history, when people actually went to their doctors, they were denied treatment. We were told, you remember, we were told to go home, wait till you can't breathe, then come back. We'll put you on a ventilator, we'll destroy your kidneys with remdesivir, and you can say your final goodbyes to your family on FaceTime. I wonder, were the same people just as sad during all that? But wait a minute. See, when that was going on, we were told then that it was the Christian thing to roll up our sleeve and let our local supermarket inject whatever they wanted to into our bodies. That was the Christian thing back then. See, these are the same people that wanted to defund the police and replace them with social workers. Do you remember that in 2020, the summer of love in America? Can you imagine someone breaking into your home? You manage to get to your phone, you call 911, and they send a guidance counselor. And that's if you have enough time to make a phone call at all. It's funny how the Christian thing seems only to support one course of political action, one monolithic political point of view, and all of that politically speaking. It seems the Christian thing means we only mourn a death if it's a death that can further our narrative. Otherwise, it's the Christian thing to side with the powerful and the elite, because after all, they know better, even better than God. And I'll be honest with you, I'm tired of people trying to make me and other people of the Christian faith, and really any and all of those who are for freedom and justice in this land, I am tired of people trying to make me feel guilty when evil is defeated, as if somehow we did something wrong. Because a threat was ended, we're the bad guys. You want to know what the Christian thing really is? It's in Genesis 3:15. This is God talking to Adam and Eve and the serpent after Adam and Eve had eaten the fruit. He asked Adam and Eve a question. They responded. They have a conversation. He tells them what the consequences of their sin are going to be. And then he talks to the serpent, to Satan, and he says this in Genesis 3:15, I will put enmity between you and the woman, between her offspring and yours. He shall bruise your head and you shall bruise his heel. From the first moment evil came to the earth, God had a plan in place not to negotiate with it, not to rationalize with it. God didn't wonder whether or not Satan had a rough childhood or whether he was out on the streets or if Satan was on earth under asylum status. No, God put in motion his plan to defeat evil once and for all. And it is a tragedy, however, that evil tends to find its vessel to work through people. But then so can good work through people, through Christ in a person's life. I do admit, full disclosure, as a father, I do sympathize to a degree with Mr. Neely's father. I mean, no matter what my kids do or will ever do, it would break my heart if they died for any reason, let alone dying in a fight, or God forbid they were committing a crime of some kind. I would still be heartbroken. They're my kids. But as a father, I also sympathize with those on the subway. And I would be so glad and grateful that God put a defender on that train to defend my kids who maybe were too afraid or too weak or weren't able for whatever reason to defend themselves. So no, Ms. Cornish, with all due respect, it is not a Christian thing to make the villain a victim. Yes, Ms. Cornish, it is a difference of values, as you said, but the rubber meets the road when we are honest about who or what is informing those values. Is it our political party platforms? Is it our paymasters at the network that pays us? Is it a special interest group? Or is it honestly the God of the universe? Because if it is God, well, death is tragic. It is the wages of sin. God is for self-defense. We are allowed to defend ourselves when we are attacked. We are allowed to defend others on their behalf when they are attacked. We do not have to sit there and take it because a potential perpetrator can be made into a politically sympathetic figure the next day on the news according to whatever narrative is agreed upon for that day. When we as human beings were attacked in the Garden of Eden by Satan, and that's what it was an attack, God stepped in for our defense. And as we come up on Christmas, when we remember when God came to earth in the person of Jesus Christ, why did he come? To pay for sin because we couldn't, to make up for the wrong because we couldn't, and to crush the head of the serpent forevermore. He was stepping in on our behalf. That's the Christian thing. And I know I'm not advocating for violence as the way, much to the contrary. As we make our way through this world, we often need someone to defend us. The Christian thing is that we do take up the burdens of others in their defense because we want people to live. We want all people to live. But should a wolf threaten our flock, threaten our sheep, then the shepherd needs to come to their defense. I would suggest to you that Daniel Penny came to the defense of those on that subway. And of course, with eternity in mind, Jesus Christ came to our defense against sin and evil. And I, for one, am grateful for both. That, Mrs. Cornish, or Ms. Cornish, that is the Christian thing.